Most gardeners see weeds as the enemy. They pop up where you don't want them, choke your crops, and spread faster than you can pull them. But what if I told you weeds are actually one of the best free garden resources hiding right under your feet? Instead of tossing them into the trash or cursing at them as you dig them out, you can transform weeds into instant garden boosters that feed your soil, improve plant health, and even attract beneficial life into your garden. The trick lies not in fighting weeds, but in learning how to recycle their natural energy back into your growing system. Why weeds are secret soil builders? Think about it. Weeds are tough survivors. They thrive in poor soil, compacted ground, and neglected corners of the yard where your prized plants wouldn't dare grow. That toughness isn't just stubbornness. It's a sign they're pulling nutrients out of the ground, storing them in their stems and leaves, and thriving on minimal resources. When you harvest weeds and return them to the soil in the right way, you're essentially capturing that stored nutrition and feeding it back to your plants. Instead of seeing weeds as freeloaders, see them as free fertilizer factories waiting to be tapped. Weed tea liquid fertilizer for pennies. One of the simplest and most effective ways to turn weeds into a garden booster is by making weed tea. The idea is simple. Collect a bucket of freshly pulled weeds, roots and all if possible, chop them into smaller pieces, and soak them in water. Within a couple of weeks, the water becomes a dark, nutrient-rich liquid fertilizer. This tea is full of minerals like nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus that plants love. To use it, just dilute 1 part weed tea with 10 parts water, then pour it around the base of your plants. It works like a natural liquid feed that your crops can absorb almost immediately. Many gardeners swear their tomatoes, peppers, and leafy greens perk up within days after a weed tea drench. Best part? It costs nothing but a little patience and a bucket you already own. Weeds as mulch and green manure. Now, if you don't have time to brew tea, no problem at all. Just chop and drop. That's right, you can take the weeds you've pulled and lay them directly on top of the soil as mulch. As they break down, they feed the soil microbes and return nutrients right where your plants need them. It's all part of a natural cycle. Weeds grow fast, you cut them back, and then they decompose to feed the next round of growth. The only rule here is to avoid weeds that have already gone to seed, unless of course you want to invite a whole new generation of them into your beds. Stick to young leafy weeds and soft-stemmed plants like chickweed, lamb's quarters, or even dandelion greens. Just chop them up with pruning shears or a hoe and layer them around your crops. Within a few weeks, they'll melt right into the soil, improving both structure and fertility. Fermented weed extracts. Now that's what I call a supercharged microbial boost. If you're into experimenting, you can actually take weed tea one step further with fermentation. By adding a handful of molasses or sugar and letting the weeds break down anaerobically, you really encourage microbes to multiply. The result is a living fertilizer, full of beneficial bacteria and fungi, that not only feeds your plants, but also improves the whole soil ecosystem. This method works much like compost tea, but costs nothing. It's especially powerful for crops that need a boost during fruiting or flowering stages. Using deep-rooted weeds to your advantage. Some weeds, like dandelions, dock, and comfrey, it's often considered a weed, have incredibly deep taproots. These roots reach down into layers of soil your vegetables can't touch, pulling up minerals like calcium, magnesium, and iron. By harvesting the leaves of these weeds and either mulching or composting them, you're essentially mining those hidden nutrients and redistributing them into the topsoil where your garden crops can access them. That's why these so-called problem plants are actually nutrient powerhouses if you handle them right. Composting weeds safely is actually a brilliant way to recycle those pesky plants. Now, a lot of gardeners understandably avoid this because they're worried that weed seeds might survive and cause problems later on. But here's the trick. You want your compost pile to get really hot, over 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius, to kill off most seeds and roots. You can totally help this process by layering your weeds with high-carbon materials like straw, cardboard, or dried leaves. If you're not quite sure your compost will reach those high temperatures, it's honestly best to avoid tossing in seedy weeds and just stick with green, leafy material. Some folks also like to solarize their weedy compost. Basically, they put the pulled weeds in a sealed black plastic bag and leave it out in the sun for a couple of weeks. The heat from the sun will kill the seeds, and after that, you can safely add the contents to your compost pile. Either way, the nutrients are recycled and really, nothing goes to waste. The hidden bonus here is attracting worms. Here's a secret bonus when you recycle weeds. Earthworms absolutely love them. Whether you're using weeds as mulch, tea, or compost, the breakdown process attracts worms in droves. Worms then aerate the soil, digest organic matter, and leave behind castings that act like nature's most concentrated fertilizer. So, every time you put weeds back into your soil system, you're not just feeding plants. You're actually feeding the entire underground workforce that keeps your garden thriving. A shift in perspective can make all the difference. At the end of the day, weeds don't have to be your enemy. Yes, you'll still pull them from your garden beds to make room for your veggies, but instead of seeing them as waste, start seeing them as resources. They're free, abundant, and packed with nutrients. With just a little effort, you can transform those scrappy plants into teas, mulches, compost, or microbial brews that boost your soil health far more effectively than store-bought fertilizers. The next time you head into the garden and spot weeds sprouting up, just smile instead of sighing. You're not battling an invasion, you're harvesting free fertilizer. Every weed you pull is another chance to close the loop, strengthen your soil, and grow healthier, more vibrant plants. Don't throw weeds away, transform them, and your garden will thank you.